Hello, 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 my loves, and welcome to EQ with Jah. So, as you can see, I'm in a new location. Got a nice little cute studio out of the city near a nice little man made lake, pond, stream. I don't know. I look out my window and all I see is nature, and it makes me feel so happy. And it's allowed me to explore so many avenues of myself in a very short amount of time. You know, a lot of times there's things we don't want to do because we're comfortable. And when you're comfortable, you get used to things just being that way, good or bad, negative or positive. If you're comfortable and not moving, you get used to the environment. And then this is when you see someone from your same environment get out and shine, and they go past their fears and they live in their authenticity and their most genuine voice. This is a moment where it was the coolest epiphany for myself. And I used to say it in a few videos, and I'm retracting this statement now and saying that love is love, and at the other end of love is pain. People say it's love and hate, and to me, I realize that's not correct. Hate is something that was constructed by man because they felt they did not understand past what they knew or what they could see. And because of that, the frustration of the emotions that were talking to them all the time made them feel that they were not listening to themselves. And that's where that whole, I hate this feeling, I just want to suppress it. And it's actually a reflectionary moment to realize at the other end of hate is fear. Fear and hate belong together. That is literally something that has come from the unknowing of man. Now, if you look to the opposite side of that, which we call Christ love, universe, energy, Gaia, God, love, these are all connected to having some level of pain and then going into light. Think about all of our births. Our mother can attest. This was a painful process. It was painful on her body. It was painful on everything, emotionally, spiritually. But once she got through that process of pushing us out from the dark space, which is the womb of the unknown, and then going out and to open up into light, that is when we're born from the pain into love. If, again, our parents understood what love was. This is why it's so important to understand why we have to get back to a place of balance, pure balance within the self, not trying to balance who you are for someone else's output, not trying to balance the environment to appease other people, but to actually know that anytime you walk into a new situation, into a new room, you are completely balanced within yourself because you've taken the time to realize, just like every analogy I use, it will always go back to the seed. We don't know if it's painful for the seed to split, but I tell you this much, if it's painful for our mother, which sits as the seed holder when our father puts the seed in her, we are the place that comes from that fear of the unknown. What are they going to be? What's going to happen? All the anxieties, all the emotions that our mothers feel, they become ours. And once we enter this world, it's our job to be able to realize those emotions were just a chemical that was teaching us how to protect ourselves or protect itself, which was our mother, not really us. And we have the opportunity to cleanse all of the things that no longer belong to us. Now, this is really hard to do because there's a lot of people who, no matter what age they are, depending on the demographic that they grew up in and stopped being an open sponge to learn, that's the age mentally that they stay at. It doesn't matter how much logic you have or didactic settings you've sat in and studied and have degrees or whatever. If emotionally you shut down where you left off last, where anytime you felt stagnated, not heard or appreciated, that becomes that imbalance of the ego, which is, they call it love and hate, when it's really hate and fear. And so this is what we call survival mode. If you are constantly stuck between hating something and fearing something, then that means you're always looking around the corner, looking over your shoulder, trying to figure out what's going to happen next before it happens. And you don't really get to enjoy life because you're constantly moving, running, and looking around at what everyone else is doing. This is why it's important to step out of this 2D type of, we call it reptilian brain, but the nicer way in my mind to say it is just, it's our 3D avatar stuck in its own constructed, distorted reality. Whatever distortion you put on it, it doesn't matter if it's good or not. You can live in the most beautiful home, in the most beautiful neighborhood, and still not know who you are. And so that's distortion, because you're putting on this image that someone else said, this is what happiness looks like. If it's not truly your happiness, you're never going to be happy in that environment. Do you understand? So it's really recognizing that that fear that's stagnating us from days and centuries and whatever of ancestors who have gone through this conditional space of thinking, and really allowing themselves to stop suppressing their emotions, which are the things that help us heal. Our emotions are what love us. If you hate your emotions, then you're saying you hate yourself, and that's where the fear comes in, because then you don't know what it means to be loved until someone else outside of you shows you, gives it to you, or makes you feel those feelings, which is again a distorted balance of, you know, the distorted masculine and feminine, where they think they need each other in a way that it's unhealthy, and everything is about trying to appease the other. When really in the divine masculine and feminine energy, you recognize that this person needs time to heal. They need to go back into their womb. While they do that, I'll tend to the topsoil and make sure they're good. And when they come out and they sprout and they flower into themselves, I can go back in and then work on myself. This is the balance that we have to build within ourselves, so that when we interact with other people, it's easier for them to understand who they're talking to. It's hard when someone says, I love you, I care, but then they shut down when you start expressing how you feel. This is a type of level of, we call it gaslighting, but really it's just emotional sabotage, because then you get to a point in your life where you start expecting things from others and expecting things from people, because when you did something like a child would do, where they, well, if I do this activity or this action, I'm going to get revalidated for my behavior, which is then a temperament that's created. This is why I say that's the level that we treat domesticating pets. If we keep domesticating our children like we do our pets, then consciously they're going to stay in that level of what do I do next? And if no one ever tells them what to do next, and we create these false idols and masters within our titles of being parents, within our titles of being authority figures, then you're going to always be stuck in this world of thinking you're meant to control other people's realities, when really you're just meant to add to your own, which enhances others if you're willing to share your journey. So when I walk into this space, I get to see that, wow, everything that I've ever gone through that I love about myself was a painful situation, but the pain was it was able to be transmuted into something that became viable, that I could use and apply to my life every single day in some new aspect. May it be, again, just working out, just writing, little things that seem so insignificant. When you have pure balance within yourself, you don't feel off keel. You don't feel off tilt, like someone's going to knock you off your rocker, they say. There's a lot of situations where I encounter, and there's people who speak to me any way they feel because of their reality that they've experienced. But that doesn't mean that their reality or experience is something that we are meant to, or I am meant to respond to or react to. A reaction is always going to say, I care about what you're saying, or you tapped into something that I care about that I haven't figured out myself. A response is saying that, you know what, I don't feel that I need to do this, but I'm going to do this because this is information that you might need along the way. The other option is silence. Silence is the most purest form of helping others grow sometimes. I'm not saying that it's the best way to go, because we've learned that too much silence means that no one gets to grow and be seen. So you do need some dynamicism where words are being spoken in a way that are helpful to the growth and not just hindering to our growth. And so that's why it's so important, when you feel something, feel it, talk through it, allow yourself to hear what you're saying, so that you can ask, where did this come from? And they can be like, it's painful to think about that. It is painful to think about it, but you're still feeling the pain. So why not just express it through thought and let it become something else? Because if the thought keeps trying to control the emotion, then all the emotion is going to do is interpret it into a reality, and that's going to be your world. I don't take depression very lightly, and I've went through it myself, and I'm not saying I've cured myself, but I definitely gotten to a point where I don't feel as mad or sad about the world or reality that I'm existing in without my permission that I did not act to be a part of, which is the 3D form, and see that my soul was incarnating this form because it needed my level of protection that could walk through the next phases of life so that it could express itself in a way that resonate with other people. Again, I have learned through my journey and process that whoever knows this spiritual language, it's a spiritual emotional language. And there's been times I've spoken to people and they're like, you're speaking way over my head, you're just making stuff up, you don't even know what you're saying. And I'm always listening to people where it's like, how can someone's emotions, when they're expressing them validly through what they've experienced and their perception of understanding, be wrong? But if someone else who reads something which is then written by someone else's experience and perceptions of everything they've gone through, this becomes a logical truth over the emotional truth, which both cannot exist without the other. I've said this before, there's no light work without shadow work. You can't just do all light work and not face your shadows and not know how to work in your shadows. There's a lot of times where there's people who work at night and they work under the cloth of darkness, and there's people who work in the daytime. That doesn't have anything to do with your actual personality or who you are, but there are workers who are built for certain hours to work certain shifts. And I am one of the ones where I can work all night and then go to sleep all day. That doesn't bother me, but it works for how I need to grow. Finding that balance is what we do in life to get to a place that we feel comfortable in life. And so if we're constantly on a spectrum of somebody else's design, you're never going to know when you're balanced. You're always going to be looking for validation, which is why it's important to create your own balance. And when you can create that balance within yourself, nothing can faze you, because now I know that my voice and who I am as a human being is just a human being. I'm nothing more than a vessel. But my soul, my voice, the things that I use to express this expression of self through this vessel, that is meant for whoever understands what I'm talking about. And those are the ones who will come into this tribe, and they'll understand that there's things that we're meant to feel that help us build into our future. This is why when we do the futuristic thinking and you look at Elon Musk and stuff, this man took something that everyone uses practically, and then he made it into something that became functionally worked for his life. That's bringing in the money, get his notoriety. But then his sole purpose is also about discovery and giving people affordability and sustainability. And so that becomes the soul's purpose. But then his higher consciousness wants to go further out there and see what other life sources exist. That's another level of consciousness that all three have to be working together in order for the alignment of your consciousness and awakening to be connected to source. This is what we call a spiritual awakening. This is what we call the great enlightenment. These are all the things that are connected to yourself. So on today, this 12/12 portal that we entered yesterday at midnight, this is the moment where you get to see a whole new year go away and a whole new seed phase. If anything that I was telling people is this was the year that the seed of the world has finally split, and that beautiful green sprout has finally shown its one little single leaf, that symbolic leaf, to show life does exist in barren areas. If you put love and life and protect it into it and do it the right way, you will bring life to it. And so now 2020 has shown us that we are capable of creating whatever life we choose to invest in. And so going into 2020, invest in yourselves, love yourself. When you find that balance, I promise you, the world will fix itself. Because if you have balanced people, you will have balanced parents. And balanced parents raise balanced children. And balanced children become a part of society who then go out into the world, and we can have a balanced workforce and community and so on and so forth. People have laughed about it and joked before, but I've seen what suppressing emotions does, and it only causes chaos and distress. But why not just go into love and actually try to give it back? When you give back, you grow back. And when you grow back, you get to give back. And it's the whole process of ebb and flow. All right, guys, I love you as always. Check me out on all my social media platforms. And then, website, this and that. Anywho, I love you. Have a great Saturday. Besos, besos, besos.